For developers who built their identity entirely around writing code, this shift is uncomfortable. Let's be honest about it, but it's also a major opportunity. There are two massive skills that you're going to want to gain as a software engineer in the AI era, especially if you're more senior, now that coding is becoming less and less a part of your daily activity. This is an identity shift that a lot of us aren't prepared for, but I do think there's a lot of leverage, especially for us that are in that more senior position. But first, I think it's important to address this shift. It's an emotional time. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic when I say that. I do think that a lot of us are really feeling a bit of like an identity change or trying to find our identity if you've been a software developer for years of your life. I've only been writing code professionally for around 12 years. And for some people, that sounds like a lot. But for me, in many ways, I feel like I'm kind of getting started. I started later in life, and now I'm seeing all the skills that I worked really hard to get basically become automated and my job changing a lot, and maybe you're feeling the same way. The first major skill developers need to cultivate, in my opinion, is communication. I learned this when I became an engineering manager, and I saw how much I had to learn to communicate. As more people gain the ability to contribute to software projects, developers will increasingly become teachers inside the organization. This is my major bet. You're going to find yourself explaining things to people who never touched a terminal, want to know what Claude is, they want to know what Cursor is. That coworker in marketing, he wants to know how to install some coding tool he read about over the weekend. A designer on your team wants to start pushing UI code into a repository. And yes, Brett in marketing is absolutely going to ask why that SaaS app that he built over the weekend can't be pushed to production tomorrow, right freaking now. He doesn't know what a database schema is. He doesn't know what a foreign key is. And he definitely doesn't know why production environments exist or what one is. You can gatekeep for sure, or you can guide. And I think that the developers who thrive will be the ones who help others find out where they can fit in the organization with these tools. If designers want to contribute UI code, that's an opportunity. You can explain why you're using Tailwind, how styles cascade, what patterns they might want to follow, what foot guns there are. You can help them make the Claude MD files or the skills files or however you want to disseminate that information. If someone asks why a staging environment exists, you can explain how deployments work and why guardrails matter. Sometimes these questions reveal something valuable. Maybe, just maybe, there are processes that we're using that are over ceremonial and should just be simplified. It's really helpful sometimes when people ask the obvious questions. Other times, it's simply an opportunity to explain why these practices exist in the first place. Either way, this communication role elevates developers beyond the stereotype of the code monkey or the weird dude with the hoodie on or whatever. Software developers are excellent communicators by force. We have to write documentation. We have to explain things over email and Slack in high-stress situations. We write code that expresses in great detail how a computer should behave. This is non-trivial stuff. So don't fall into this belief, this nonsense that coders or something suck at communicating. We suck at communicating tough things to non-technical people, and that's an area where there's a lot of leverage if you take this opportunity. Skill number 2 that's going to define great developers and separate those from the rest going forward is system level design. I think at some point in your career, this shift is already going to happen naturally, and you're going to begin to realize that the code that you personally write matters a lot less than the decisions that shape the entire systems. Questions like, should this service be serverless or always on? Are we using MySQL, Postgres, or a key value store? Why? Should this use a message queue or event streaming? Are we going to use dense vectors or sparse vectors in our RAG application? Is this a graph database problem or a relational one? All these really sticky doors, these one-way doors that are really hard to pull back from, these are the decisions that actually shape the future of the company and the system, and they are not easily reversible decisions and need a lot of context, a lot of thought, and a lot of research. You can't simply plug all that into ChatGPT. Well, you could, but you really won't get a very good answer. The reason these are one-way doors or sticky two-way doors is because once you make the choice, it's extremely difficult to undo. Switching from Elasticsearch to a relational database after a system has been in existence for some time is going to be incredibly painful. Moving from MongoDB to SQL or the reverse is also pretty painful, right? Infrastructure choices, architecture decisions, data models become the real leverage points that you can have a lot of influence over in your organization. And importantly, these are areas where non-technical contributors just can't operate without developers. I don't see a future where that will be the thing that they can do. I don't subscribe to the idea that your skills are just disappearing because, as you know, coding is just one small part of what you likely do. And even if you're a purely front-end developer, I hate to say even if, because I'm mostly a front-end developer too. There's a lot of hate on the whole front-end thing. But even if you're a front-end developer who sometimes feels like you're at the lower end of the totem pole, you can still bring critical expertise. You likely understand things like Git workflows, CI/CD pipelines, build systems, Tailwind, for example, and all the quirks and overrides and the different versions and how those interact, CSS edge cases, the difference between something that looks correct and something that actually works, accessibility issues, all these things that you've just kind of naturally acquired over the years. And these aren't trivial skills. And anyone who's tried to generate UI from design tools or automated systems discovers that the output is often almost correct, but not quite. And that last 10% of details is where your experience is going to matter the most. Now, there's a big distribution shift. And what's really happening is that the distribution of developer work is changing. It's going from coding, right? In the past, coding might have been 70 to 80% of your time writing code. Now it may look more like 30 to 40% or 10%. Maybe 60% of your time is spent thinking, communicating, designing, and guiding others. For developers who built their identity entirely around writing code, this shift is uncomfortable. Let's be honest about it, but it's also a major opportunity. So I would just say that you have a choice. You can embrace the new identity as communicator, teacher, system designer, technical guide, and also a coder. Let's be honest, you're going to be writing code, or you can double down on writing more code than anyone else. That, in my opinion, is a losing game. One path scales, the other one doesn't. And the developers who recognize this shift early are going to have even more leverage in the future. It's going to compound. And the future developer isn't just someone who writes code, but of course we always will be writing or orchestrating code. It's someone who helps the entire organization build software better and opens up the tent and allows more people to contribute in safe and reliable ways. Anyways, let's see if I'm right. This is my prediction, and I hope that this was in some way helpful to you.